Hello everyone. Today we're going to begin our Frankenstein unit, and we're going to begin by talking about elements of the Gothic or Romance novel. Now, when we read Count of Monte Cristo, we started out by talking about Romanticism and the elements of Romanticism. We focused on four main elements. One was sentimentalism, and that was the embracing of emotion and feeling over reason and logic. Basically, characters act on their passions as opposed to thinking about the consequences of their actions. The next was the romantic hero, and this was a protagonist that rejects the established norms and conventions, has usually been rejected by society, and has the self as the center of his or her own existence. He or she can accomplish improbable feats, and we definitely saw that with the Count of Monte Cristo. He did things that often seemed very impossible. Then we had horror and awe, which were those grotesque or gruesome elements such as blood, murder, even supernatural beings. In Count of Monte Cristo, one example is when they sit and they watch the execution, and Monte Cristo watches it almost without any type of passion or emotion or empathy or anything. Then finally, we looked at the supernatural or the sublime, and this is when the improbable is a reality. Okay, so we have ghosts and monsters and superhuman strength. All of those become normal and natural occurrences within the book, and we're supposed to kind of suspend our disbelief. Okay, now to expand upon those romantic elements, and you probably need to write these down in your notes, we have the idea that there's a powerful love. Two people are deeply in love, or at least one person is deeply in love and powerfully attracted to another individual. There's the uncertainty of reciprocation, and so sometimes there's that element of, does he love me, does she love me in return? And then that can actually be unreturned love too. Maybe one person is not as in love as the other. You also have the possibility that perhaps there's another person, it's a love triangle, and that person is the odd man out and does not have their love returned. There is tension between true love and the father's control. And so you have an individual who is trying to experience true love, but at war with that is the idea that the father or the father figure within the story has a certain amount of control, and in order to give into that love, that father must relinquish control. Many times there are lovers parted. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. There is an illicit love or lust that threatens the virtuous one. Basically, there's always seems to be one character who is pure and above par, and as a result of actions by often the main character within the story, that love is threatened, that person is threatened because there is another individual who has an illicit love or lust for that person. And then there are rival lovers or multiple suitors. And so you have, two or more people competing with the love of another individual. Now, Frankenstein has some of those elements, many of those elements, but the other thing is that it has the elements of a Gothic novel. And so, Gothic novel, there's a setting in a castle. There's an atmosphere of mystery and suspense. There's a lot of things that are sort of unexplained, or you're waiting to find out more about. There is an ancient prophecy. And so a prophecy is a prediction. So, there is something that has been said long ago that will come true. There are omens, portents, and visions. An omen is an event or something that is regarded as a portent of good or evil, one or the other. A portent is a sign or a warning that something, especially something bad, is likely to happen. And so you may see this in the form of a supernatural being, or some type of object, or something that happens. There's various ways that we can have those clues as to what will be happening within the novel. Next, you have the supernatural, otherwise inexplicable events, and so that goes with our supernatural and sublime for romantic elements. There's high, even overwrought emotions. So there's always that one person is doing too much, pretty much. Okay, that one person that is kind of over the top. So it's not just that they're scared; they have to scream, they have to cry, they have to faint, etc. from that fear. There are often women in distress who are threatened by a powerful, impulsive, tyrannical male. And so here's this one person that it seems unstoppable. He's something to be feared, and the women within the novel are threatened by that fear. And then there's the metonymy of gloom and horror. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about metonymy and what metonymy is. A metonymy is a subtype of a metaphor. It is something that is used to stand for something else. So, for example, rain in funeral scenes is used to stand for sorrow. So you have something that is closely related. When we see most metonymies, we hear them every day. We just don't realize what they are. But for instance, when we say the White House has no comment, we're not talking about the actual house itself. We're talking about the people that are represented by that house. And that usually ends up meaning the president and his staff. In much the same way we would say Washington. There's no comment from Washington. That means that there's no comment from the government itself. When we get down to specific doom and gloom, some metonymies of gloom and doom that we see in almost every horror movie are things like wind blowing, doors grating, the footsteps, approaching, characters that are trapped in a room all of a sudden, and then the rain. Um, what I would like to do is think about where you might find some of these other elements. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to pause. And as you pause, I want you to create a list of other pieces of literature, such as television shows, and movies where we find these elements. And then I want you to think about, why does this genre continue to be popular? If you need to, take a minute to kind of think together in your list and throw out some ideas, okay? So, what did you come up with? Hopefully, things like, one of the most famous ones I can think of is Scooby Doo. They have all of these elements within it. Um, but then you also look at other horror movies. When you see any of the Jason movies, when you see um, Final Destination, or any of those type of horror movies, we see a lot of these metonymies of gloom and horror. Now, when we actually talk about Frankenstein itself, Frankenstein is a fairy tale. And you guys were exposed to the idea of a fairy tale when we read Canterbury Tales. And basically what a fairy tale is a secondary story or stories are embedded in the main story. So the frame itself is the main story, and through that, we have other stories being told. And so Mary Shelley actually set up a fairy tale to tell Victor Frankenstein's story. And here's the frame. There's this guy, his name is Robert Walton. Robert inherits a large sum of money from a wealthy uncle, and he decides to attempt to travel to the North Pole because he asks himself, do I not deserve to accomplish some great purpose? And that's one question I want you guys to write down and to really think about as you are stepping out into, a whole new life outside of high school. Do think about it for yourself. Do you not deserve to accomplish some great purpose, whatever that may be in life? Because each of you has the opportunity, the potential, the talents, the skills to accomplish something great and to really make us proud back here at Parkway North. But anyway, back to the story. So he decides to attempt to travel to the North Pole. And as he's traveling, he's writing letters back to his sister, Margaret Seville, describing his experiences. Robert Walton, his ship gets stuck in the ice north of St. Petersburg, and as it's stuck there, he finds Victor Frankenstein floating on an ice floe, which is a large chunk of ice, and he's very ill. And so he cares for Victor and he befriends him. And as he befriends him, Victor begins to tell his story. And that is where we are going to end up beginning to read as Victor begins telling his story. And so I hope you guys enjoy it. Talk to you later.